Okay, let's make some pan-fried fish and chips. I'm going to use those frozen French fries we've been working off of for a while. Throw on some of that Lawry's seasoned salt because it's so good. I'm going to shove them in the oven. The oven's preheated. I got it at 425 again. Got a little bit of smoke in here. One of those fries dropped from there yesterday and it's burning up pretty good. Alright, we are going to use tilapia today. I'm going to use this little plastic cutting board. I don't like getting all kind of stuff on my board if I don't have to. Anyway, we're going to use tilapia. I took a paper towel and pad to dry somewhat. And we're going to use some Old Bay seasoning. This stuff is really good. Is that upside down? I don't know how this works with this darn camera. Some Old Bay seasoning. It's salty. It's got a little bit of spice to it, so you got to watch out. But it's like the classic seafood flavor. Getting crabs and stuff like that. They dump tons of Old Bay. It's good, it says, with fish and chicken. And we're going to season this up first because we want some flavor to be underneath that flour. Okay, it's got plenty of salt. We don't need to put anything else on there for that. Get that out of the way. And we're going to pan fry these today. We're not going to deep fry them. I'm not one for breaking out a half a gallon of oil just to fry something. And we're going to get it into manageable portions. You can go sideways, cut them in areas. I like just cutting them in little strips like this. But you want to try to keep them uniform in size, thickness. The real thin pieces are going to cook real fast. So you got to watch out with them. You may have to pull that out early, so you want to go ahead and get that. What did you think of that, huh? That looks decent size, huh? Let's get that one out of the way. So, one there, another one here. Get that fat part right here. And this little thin one's going to cook fairly fast. All right. And get this guy out of the way. These potatoes are going to be 20 minutes or so. So I've got my breadcrumbs that are just plain. I got my flour. I'm going to put a little salt in that just to have a little bit extra flavor. You know, I always season up the flour. The breadcrumbs, you can put Italian seasoning, but like I said before, if you put Italian seasoning in there, you'd end up with Italian flavoring on everything you do, and you may not always want that. Also with breadcrumbs, they make panko. Panko is more of a wheat, whole wheat, I've read, and it's a large shred, and it's a Japanese breadcrumb, Japanese panko. So you can use that. Actually, it makes it very crispy. And we're going to take one egg and put it in a larger bowl this time. And for this, you can use milk, water, buttermilk. Buttermilk's pretty good. The acids in the buttermilk help break down the meat. Tenderize chicken, or tenderize fish. I'm just going to give this a scramble to start with. And this also is going to get just a shot of seasoned salt in it. That's scrambled up. We're going to end up putting about 2 ounces of water in that. Ounce and a half. If it's too thick, it'll just kind of lay on top of the flour. And we don't want that. We want this to help the flour bind to the breadcrumbs. Alright, that's nice. And if it's too thin, you just got water, so. Alright, and with like a regular classic breading station that I spoke of before, flour, egg wash, and breadcrumb. Keep one hand dry for flour, one hand wet. That way you don't get all that goop all over and get a real thick hand. Right, this will be my dry hand here. And we're going to flour it. Shake off a little bit of the flour. Oops, that's backwards, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. And drop it in the egg wash. Alright. I'm going to let that hydrate into that flour a little bit. And then in your breadcrumbs. Okay. I wouldn't go doing a whole lot of flour in here because it'll just end up going to waste. Alright, shake off most of your breadcrumbs. Alright, so we're going to Keep our wet and our dry separate. Flour, our egg wash, and the breadcrumbs. And again, you can use shrimp, chicken, fish, whatever you want to do breading in a station like this, but I was going to go ahead and do some chicken and the fish just so you would have it for your spouse that doesn't like seafood. And yes, if you had a bunch of it, you could just put a bunch of pieces in the flour at one time, toss a bunch of pieces in the egg wash at one time. That has a tendency to gather too much flour. It makes your egg wash really thick real fast. But a couple pieces in the flour at a time isn't going to hurt anything. But just don't dump all them into the egg wash at one time. And we're not going to deep fry these in the big frying pan, but like I was starting to say earlier, I'm not one for using a half gallon of oil for anything. Sure, in the kitchens we always had the deep fryer. You turn the thing on and you just dump whatever you want in the thing during the day. The issue with that is people like to fry seafood and chicken in the same grease, and it starts to change the flavor of the frying oil after a while. And a lot of these kitchens have a tendency to not change their oil out enough. Alright, so I just gave that a shake too. It works like that as well. And I'll do 2 in here just to show you. It's not too bad. And it's the same thing if you're taking a bunch of pieces out of the egg wash and dumping it into the flour or into your breadcrumbs will start to get thick and they'll get all chunky from the wetness that drips off there. But this, you want to let this drip off of here, you know. And speaking of the chips, I just did a little reading. They call it research, Google. I did some reading about that. They call them chips because in England, long time ago, that's where it originated. And Americans just like the sound. The difference between a chip and a fry, I've read, was chips are a thicker, more potatoey, more chunky potato. Around us, you know, we order fries, depends on where you get them from. You can get shoestring fries from some places, so you can end up getting, you never know what you're going to get when you order fries. Remember Wendy's used to have those big old giant hog leg wedges. You may not remember that. That was back in the day. Anyway, there we got. We got our fish breaded up nicely. Looks pretty good, huh? And then those potatoes, they're chips. They're going to take another 15 minutes easily. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down, get this cleaned up, and this fish won't take longer than 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes max to do all of it in the pan. So I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Okay, we're back. I got about maybe 5 minutes left on the fish. I got about a cup of oil in this pan, just a little. It's my larger 12-inch pan. We want to get this to about 325, 350. Right now I'm about 285. Okay. Our fish has been sitting for a while. It's kind of soaked up everything. Everything's kind of sticking to it real nice. We're going to get those in a second. Now back to the oil thing. If your oil is too cold, it's going to get soggy when you drop your fish in it. All right, anything you put in there is just going to soak it up. So you want to make sure that the oil is good temperature. It'll fry the food instead of gather up inside of it, and then it'll push the liquids out and then get inside the fish. So that's at the point where you take it off the fire. Oh, there it goes, a little pop. So we're sitting right around 325. Ooh, 360. All right, so we're hot. So I'm going to bring this down to medium again. When you put your stuff in there, it's going to change the temperature, and it's going to lower the temperature of the heat of the grease. So you can check it to see if it's going to bubble. It looks like it's about right. You don't want to crowd the pan. That's why I went with the larger pan. These little thin ones, these are going to cook a lot faster. So I'm going to put those in last. That one's going to cook fast too. When you put them in, they're going to stick, like I said the last time. Let them sit for a second. Let them do their thing. If you try to move them around a little bit, they'll separate. You can get underneath them and scrape them loose. Just let them cook for a second. When you put them in, you can swoosh them back and forth a little bit, and that'll work as well too. Okay, let them go just for a minute. You see now they're starting to come up. They came up. So if you tried to do it right away in a pan like that, they would have stuck. Okay, that's nice. Just a little fire in the bottom of this thing is only about that big around. So of course it's going to be hotter in the middle than it would around the edges. Which sometimes that's a good thing, because if it gets a little too hot, you can push your stuff to the edge and the center will be hotter than the edge. So right now our oil's at 331, which is just a little cool, which is perfect though. This will give us a chance to cook. The fish isn't too thick. If it was chicken, if it was thick chicken, it'd definitely take a little bit longer. Okay, and since I am using a stainless pan, I'm going to use my metal tongs. These are getting a nice color to them. I'm going to move these to the edge. I can smell the Old Bay seasoning cooking up. I'm going to get this little flat one in there. The grease will splatter. You don't want that popping on you. Water and oil, you know, doesn't mix. Okay, let's look at this color. Oh, there's a nice color on that, huh? That looks pretty good. I don't know why it's so dark in here. Fish has good, nice brown color. Everything looks good here, huh? That's been about 3 minutes on each side. I think we're going to be good with that. Yep, and then the fridge decides to come on, make all that noise. Alright, let's check our temp. Temp's 325, we're doing good. 321, but 325 is good. I can turn that up just a hair. The pieces in the middle are starting to cook pretty darn fast, so I'm glad I waited a minute to put those in. Get yourself a paper towel ready. Put it on the side and let that soak up some of that oil. It's a cool fish spatula. I love this thing. I've had this thing, actually that belonged to your sister. She gave me that a long time ago, and I've had it since. They call it a fish spatula because you can get up underneath there and lift that fish up. All the grease will drain up underneath of it, and it's long enough to turn a good sized piece of sauté fish. When you sauté fish, you flour it, and you put the good side down first. So you get the part that's along the bones, and there's a part that's along the skin. You put the skin side down first, so whenever you flip it over, you have the pretty side up, and it finishes cooking. You can get that up there and put it on the plate, and it looks a lot better than a piece of upside down fish. All right, this is browned up nicely. A little light, but that's fine. That one's nice. Deep fryers run about 350. Some places run them 375 if they're doing a lot of cooking because they lose temperature fast. This looks pretty good. I'm going to let these go another 2 minutes or so, minute and a half. That little thin one is almost done already. Temperature came up pretty nice on that oil. Alright, I'm going to push this off to one side. Get the plate in here. Fries are done. Chips, sorry. Chips. I gotta turn them back and forth so it looks like it's a, there you go, that looks a lot better. I got 2 fillets of fish in there, so that's enough for me and one other person. They'll be getting that in a minute. Got some tartar sauce. I don't have any lemon. I got lemon juice. Alright, let's get these off the grease. They cook for a total of what, 6 minutes or so? They're not greasy. I'll turn one of these over. We'll look at the back side of it. Here's the back side of it. Looks nice, huh? Nice and golden color. Okay. I'll let that cool, and I'll save that because we're going to fry up some shrimp in another couple days. I don't like to waste the oil. Okay, that's cooled a little bit. That's sucked up some of that extra grease. Now look at that. It's not like it's really super soggy down there. If that grease wasn't cold enough when I cooked it, that would be all soggy, and you'd have just gobs of it. Oh, there's some there, but we'd have just gobs of oil, and we don't have gobs of oil. Let me get the fattest one I got here. This is pretty fat. We'll break that open. Let me get in there. Look at that. Nice and moist in there. It's not greasy. It's not soggy. The breading is sticking to the fish fairly well. Look at that. And of course, it's going to come off because you're... But look at that. It's sticking real well. It bound real good with the protein in the fish. Fish is nice and moist. Good flavor. Tilapia is a nice mild fish. And there we have it. Oh yeah, that looks more presentable, huh? A little fish and chips there. And I'll let you know how it worked out.